I'm Bill Payne. We're at the American Legion Veterans Museum for the Smithsonian Veterans History Project. And today it is December 5th, 2004. And also here is Big Mac McElreath and Nakia Brzezinski and Alan Brzezinski. And with us today we have John Wood, who is a World War II veteran of the 4th Division, Infantry Division, the Ivy Division. So good morning, John.
Good morning, Bill.
Were you drafted or did you enlist?
No, I enlisted on my 18th birthday.
And
Prior to that, I left high school at 17, and I wanted to enlist in the Navy, but they wouldn't take me because of Act 14. But then, fortunately, they changed the draft to whereas anybody at the age of 18 with their parents' consent could enlist for 1 year. And it's funny, I enlisted on my birthday, January the 23rd, 1923. And today happens to be Pearl Harbor. And 63 years ago, I was ready for discharge because my year was up. But thanks to the Japs, I spent 5 years.
so you were actually serving in the Army before Pearl Harbor?
Before Pearl Harbor.
Okay, where did you serve?
I was with the 4th Infantry Division in Fort Benning, Georgia.
Oh, where did you go to boot camp?
In Fort Benning, Georgia.
And do you remember what it was like when you arrived there?
Oh yeah, of course we were with the Southern Division, and of course the Southerners and the Yankees, why, they still had that grudge against us, I guess. As a matter of fact, on the lawns throughout there, the people had signs on their lawns. Soldiers and dogs, keep off.
That's pretty unpleasant. Did you pick the Army? You did?
Well, when I enlisted, that's what they gave me, the Army.
Why did you want to join the military service at that time?
Well, I saw that sign in front of the post office with Uncle Sam pointing the finger, we need you. And so I enlisted.
So, do you remember who your instructors were or what they were like when you were at Fort Benning?
Yeah, well, we had a company commander who was a semi-pro football player, and we had my sergeant and corporal. And believe me, we started training after 3 weeks of under quarantine.
What was the quarantine about?
Well, in case we brought anything with us, and it didn't spread throughout the regular Army. We joined the regular Army.
Right.
And of course, then they were making us, they were making the 4th Division war strength, which was 250 men per company.
So you started with physical training.
Oh, right away. Yeah.
PT, running and...
Mostly hiking,
Mhm.
go 10 miles one way and then come back past the barracks and go back again. It was rough, but I was young.
So you got through it without too much trouble?
Oh, I got through it pretty good.
Okay. And then you went on to learning infantry tactics and weapons and so forth, I take it, is that right?
Yes, well, you see, unbeknown to us, we were training for the Normandy invasion. We went Louisiana maneuvers and so forth, and then we even went to Camp Clarabelle in Florida, where we took our invasion training going out in LCMs, like 50 miles out in the Gulf, and getting our training in and out of LCMs.
Why don't you describe what the LCM looked like?
LCM is a troop flat bottom box that the ramp went down the front, and when you reached your destination, why that dropped, and you went out and did what you had to do. In this case, we got out and we had to go to a beach where we had to climb up ropes, up on the other side, come down, training for when we were going into the invasion, when we left the Liberty ships. While we knew what we were doing when we were going down, there was ropes into LCMs, which was troop ships.
I meant to ask you, where were you living when you joined the Army?
In Saugerties.
Okay. Now, this going down the cargo nets into the LCMs was dangerous in itself, wasn't it?
Oh, my God, yes.
Did you have people injured in training?
I understand that when we went out of Clarabelle, part of the 12th Infantry Regiment, which was part of the 4th Division, hit a sandbar and they lost a lot of men there. And of course, the day we did this was on a Thanksgiving. And believe me, when we came back, it was freezing. They got trucks right in, and most of the men ended up in the hospital because of the frost and everything else. This was Florida.
Wow, yeah, it could be cold in Florida sometimes.
Yes, it's,
What other places in the United States did you travel to before you went overseas?
well, from Fort Benning, we went to Camp Gordon Johnson, which we opened as a new camp. From there, we went to
What
Fort
state was that in, John? Gordon Johnson, what state was that in?
in Georgia.
That was in Georgia, too.
Yeah. And then from there, we went to Fort Jackson, which was South Carolina. And then we went to Fort Dix, New Jersey. And then we left Fort Dix. And then we went to Camp Clarabelle, where we took our invasion training, which was unbeknown to us. And then we came back and to Camp Upton, New York. And of course, that is when we loaded on the ships to go to France, to go to England.
Did you get to see your folks or get any leave before you went overseas?
I had one 10-day leave, which was in Fort Benning. And of course, 10 days coming from Georgia ain't too long. And the funny part of it is, when I was coming back, because from Saugerties, the train broke down about midway to Kingston, and the conductor come through with forms that had to be filled out in case we're late for getting back. And I filled it out and I handed it to him. And after he read it, he handed it back to me. He said, "It ain't gonna work." I said, "What do you mean? I gave you all the information that's necessary." He says, "Well, I'll tell you." He said, "My name is John Wood." So he had to bring it up to the engineer to have him sign it to make it legal.
Otherwise, it would look like a forgery, huh?
Yeah, right.
Wow. Did you know him before that at all, the conductor?
No.
Just another John Wood, huh?
Just another John Wood.
Wow, that's something. So you got on board troop ships in what, in New York Harbor?
Yes.
Okay. Sailed out of New York, huh?
Yeah, I got on what they call the Cape Town Castle, an English ship.
An English ship.
Yeah, it was supposed to be one of the biggest convoys that ever left the United States. It took us 16 days to get from the harbor in New York to Liverpool, England.
How was the accommodations on the ship? How was the food?
Well, it was all right if they wanted to give it to you, but they were afraid we were going to get sick. So they didn't mess the ship up too much.
So you got very little food?
Yeah.
And you had to be concerned about enemy submarines, I guess, huh?
Yeah, well, we had protection both sides going over.
And there weren't any ships attacked by submarines as you were traveling the convoy?
No, thank God.
Okay, thank God. That's good. So you got to Liverpool, England. How was that?
Well, we were greeted by all the English young boys and asking for chocolate, you know, whatever. And then we went to Bath in England. And of course, then we started our training again.
Did you get a chance to see any of England and Bath or any of those places? Or?
Oh, I got to see a lot of it, yeah.
Okay. Where did you travel around in England?
Oh, from Liverpool, we went to well, my brother-in-law, Albert Sparrow, he was stationed there, and I went to see him. And I forget where he was. And I saw quite a bit of London and the beaches and whatever.
London had been damaged severely by the bombs, I take it.
Oh, yeah, well, we watched what they call the one bomb that come over and wasn't manned or anything.
Oh, like a V1 or
like,
V2?
yeah,
Yeah,
a
buzz
V1.
bomb? Yeah, a missile, guided missile. Yeah.
Guided missile, and we saw them dropping everything.
Wow.
You could see that, and we could see the German planes coming over to bomb.
It must have been pretty frightening, huh?
thank God they were a long ways away,
Yeah.
but we could see them,
That's it.
yeah.
How did the English people feel about Americans being there?
Well, they were kind of jealous because they couldn't understand, here we are in nice clothes, training, falling on our face and all this kind of bit. And of course, they were very poor. You know, a funny thing, because this is after I came back from the war. I went to a movie, a cinema, and had a little old lady come to me, and she said to me, she said, "Sir," she says, "is your country like they say it is? You don't have any kings or queens or palaces or anything like that?" I said, "Well, we have palaces, but we have a president and a first lady." "Oh my God," she says, "I wouldn't want to live in your country."
Don't know what you're missing.
Yeah.
Did you have a particular assignment as an infantryman, besides being a rifleman?
I was a BAR man,
You were the BAR man.
automatic weapons.
So you carried the Browning automatic
Browning
rifle,
automatic rifle,
which could shoot fully automatic,
which could shoot, right.
and you carried all of the magazines that went with it.
Well, I carried 4,
Mhm.
and I had an assistant that carried more.
Was there a particular reason why you got picked to be the BAR man?
I think because I was young and small.
Kind of a small target, huh?
Oh, God, yeah.
That was a critical, the automatic weapons man was an important part of the team.
It was who the Germans looked for.
Now then, of course, you left England to go to France and the invasion of Normandy.
Right.
And, you were there at H Hour on
D-Day.
D-Day, December,
December
June
6th.
6th of June,
June 6th,
1944.
right.
So could you tell us about that, those days, what it was like leaving England and,
Well, you know, a lot of people don't know. And you see, the Normandy invasion was in planning since about 1940 or 41. What took place was we had about 6 or 8 what they call spy planes that flew over France, like two would go every 2 hours. And then we had spies who worked with the French underground. So that, when we went to what they called the Blue Room, I guess, when we were getting ready to go in France, we were in a camp where they had guards around us and everything, and they had rooms where we went in. And the reason them the spy planes and the French underground and our people, they had a map which was about 4 feet square. I think now it's in Washington with all the other stuff. And that map had every building on it, every cow pasture. They could tell us how many chickens they had, how many people lived in a house, how many cows they had everything. And of course, they pointed out and showed us where we were going to land. Then they had photos all along the wall. And the only thing they couldn't tell us was when we were leaving.
so you knew what your objective was going to be?
We knew what our objective was, yeah. We
What
knew
your
we were going to hit
assignment,
Utah Beach.
Utah Beach, and then it was an area that was going to be yours to secure, I take it, is that right?
Well, Utah Beach was where we were to hit. And our goal was Cherbourg.
Cherbourg.
Right.
Did you, what was it like getting on board the ships there, and where did you sail out of, do you remember?
I think it was Southampton.
Mm-hmm.
And it was manned by Englishmen. And on the 5th day of June, I had the pleasure of not actually shaking hands with him, but meeting General Eisenhower, Field Marshal Montgomery, and General Roosevelt, who landed with us on Utah Beach, General Roosevelt.
That's Theodore Roosevelt II.
The second.
The son of President Theodore Roosevelt.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And were they on board the ship there, or they came to the camp?
They came to the camp,
Mm-hmm.
and then when we got on the ship, that's when I received this letter.
Yeah, why don't you hold it up to the camera there?
Each one of us, that made the initial landing in Normandy received one of these letters from General Eisenhower. And this is a letter, I don't think you want me to read it, but it's quite lengthy.
Let me just take a look. I'll just read a couple of the words here, okay?
Yeah.
A lot of people who know history know exactly what it says. It says, soldiers and sailors and airmen and allied expeditionary force, you're about to embark on a great crusade toward which we have striven for these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you. And it continues like that, and then in the end it says, I have full confidence in your courage, devotion to duty, and skill in battle. We will accept nothing less than full victory. Good luck, and let us all beseech the blessing of Almighty God upon this great and noble undertaking. And it's signed Dwight D. Eisenhower. So John's got his name on here, and he's got the date June 6, 1944, and also his unit is Company L.
Company L.
3rd Battalion.
3rd Battalion, 22nd Infantry.
22nd Infantry, 4th Infantry Division. It's really quite a memento to have. And John's going to get a copy of it for us, just a copy, so we can put it in our museum. Thanks, John. So then you sailed and went across the channel, I take it?
Yeah, we went across the channel.
What was the weather like?
Very bad. We anchored about a mile out from the coast of France, and at 4 o'clock, the sky was full of airplanes. I think on the bottom was the bombers, who dropped 6,000 tons of bombage on each beachhead, there was 5, and then the gliders and the paratroopers, which was the 82nd Airborne, and I assume some of it was 101st. And of course, when we landed, when we hit the beach, we were a mile north of where we were supposed to hit.
Were you getting enemy fire as you came to the beach?
No, we didn't, but right next to us is where the 1st Division was on Omaha. They got hit bad. As we were going in, of course, like I said, the English, they weren't too swift. They were supposed to help us load into the LCN, and we were supposed to leave the ship at 6, hit a rendezvous area at 6:15, then proceed into the beach. But we were late, and when we were heading into the rendezvous area, they had already taken off and was going in, and in our position was an LCT, which is a landing craft tank. And I believe it had about 4 tanks on it, plus I don't know how many men. And about maybe 100 yards out from shore, he was in our position. And it shows you how God works. They hit a mine, which blew the tank out of water, blew the landing craft out of water, lifted right up, turned upside down. I met a man in one of the reunions who was part of that, and he told me they lost 150 men right there. Or you could see them swimming, what could make it. It was really, really bad. So then we hit the beach, and General Roosevelt was standing right next to me, and he couldn't. And of course, he said, "Let's go, fellas." He said, it's one shell to get the whole bunch. And when we started in, there was along the beach was beds, double beds, where the officers slept, I guess. And underneath them, we found one box full of the German payroll, which we emptied out on the beach. And unfortunately, we landed a mile from where we were supposed to be, north of it. So when we started in, right in front of us was nothing but landmines. And on our way over, one man who was with the 30 millimeter, he blew his top and threw his ammunition and hit a mine, and he got it, and some of my men got it. And then when we got over, there was like a small hill. On the other side of that was what do you call it? concrete building.
So like a bunker or a pillbox?
A pillbox, thank
Right.
you.
Mhm.
And my sergeant, Sergeant Walker, he went up to check it out when he did it in online. And he got critically injured. So we got up there, and of course with my assault team, we had what they call a satchel charge and a pole charge. And of course it was their duty, the first one, with the pole charge was to go in and set off at the face of the pillbox, and the other one ran over and threw it in. And of course we had flamethrowers and everything, but the Germans come out with a white flag. And of course, you know, with each group they had an SS trooper. And when they came out, our officer and a few men went down, one spoke German. When the SS trooper came out, he shot the lieutenant. They had one of these little handguns. Well, that was the end of the story.
So you took out the SS trooper,
Yeah,
and then the rest of these guys,
took them out too.
you say,
But
came out under a white flag and then killed your officer.
Yeah. But unfortunately, we're talking about these men that were captured French and whatever. And if they didn't shoot, the SS trooper shot them, so they had no choice.
So the SS troopers were there to encourage the
You're
people
right.
to fight.
Yeah,
We always seem to fight against the worst kind of people, don't we?
you got that right.
And then what went on then?
Well then, thanks to the, I always give the 82nd paratroopers so much credit because they landed behind the German lines and they opened it up, the front for us. That's why I'm here today. I always say that. And they pulled the German, matter of fact, there was a German division on maneuvers where we hit and they drew them. And my assault team, we penetrated 6 miles into France on D-Day.
6 miles on the first day.
6 miles on the first day. Then, of course, we had to withdraw somewhat.
Consolidate the line.
Right.
But how many casualties do you think you had in your unit on that first day?
On that first day, I don't know, we had quite a few. We had a lot of casualties.
In the platoon and in the company and so forth?
Well, when I got hit, I don't think there was 5 left in my assault team.
That wasn't on the first day, though.
No, that was around June 5th.
No. June 6th was the day you invaded, right?
Yeah. June 9th,
June 9th. You got wounded on June 9th.
on June 9th.
Okay. So you were in combat then right through to June 9th?
Yeah, well, we were on the drive and they were on the counterattack.
Mm-hmm.
My company commander got killed the same day, and then how many were captured?
With a German counterattack?
It was a German counterattack, yeah. I looked at him right in the face. And a couple other guys were captured at that time. But I was fortunate, I got back through a hole in the wall. And I was talking with my first lieutenant, company exec. And of course, after that, why, I didn't know too much of anything.
How did you get wounded?
I got hit with shrapnel.
Was it mortar or artillery, or
I couldn't even tell you.
just got hit with shrapnel?
I got hit with shrapnel, and I woke up in England in the hospital. I don't even know how I got there.
So you were unconscious all the time that you were taken from France till you got to England in the hospital?
That's right, yeah.
Where did the shrapnel hit you over your body?
My head, I had one piece in my head and then my leg. But thank God they weren't that serious. I think the main thing was when I was carried out, they kind of think you're psycho or something, and that they treat you like that. And I laid in the hospital for a couple of months. Then I went to what they call West Point of England, and that's where the officers came to be.
Oh, Sandhurst. Is that Sandhurst?
Was it Sandhurst?
Yeah, English West Point.
And that's where they sent them over to replacements.
So you got to go over as a replacement?
No, I didn't go because there was 5 officers asked me if I would talk with them. Me, private first class, you know?
Yeah.
So they asked me about the war. And I told them that I had about 5 years training. And I said, I'm gonna tell you men something, that when you go to war, you know all the training you got, forget it. Because when you have bullets firing at you, God knows what else, you don't dig holes you can't have time. You just do the best thing that comes to your mind, behind a tree or whatever.
So you were actually training the officers who were gonna go to war?
Well, I wasn't training them, I was just telling them what the
Giving
effects
them,
were.
yeah, giving them the scoop. The
They had
information.
the scoop.
I know you got the Purple Heart Medal for being wounded, and I understand you got other decorations too. Could you tell us about that?
Well, I got the Purple Heart, and of course the Combat Infantry Badge. I got the Bronze Star. I got the Presidential Citation with 2 clusters. And I got a lot of other medals that come with being with the 4th Infantry Division
What'd you get the Bronze Star for?
for combat.
Okay. And then, so you recovered in England. You were recovering in England.
I was recovering in England,
Mm-hmm.
and then I went to recuperation. And after recuperation, why, I was on my way back to France in a 6x6, and I was talking to a fellow next to me, and I had my arm on the side of the thing, and they hit another truck on the same side I was sitting and almost ripped my arm off.
Was this in England?
This was in England, on my way back to my outfit.
So you had a truck accident.
October 1st,
Uh-huh.
1944.
1944. And that seriously injured your arm.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's 100%,
It's 100% disability?
yes.
Oh, okay. And then, so you went back in the hospital again, I guess, right?
Then I was back in the hospital,
Okay.
and, yeah.
I'm glad to see you recovered from that.
Yeah.
What happened after that?
Well, you know, my mother, funny thing, my mother, my folks owned the hotel, and my mother had the radio on, and she was having a well drill, when all of a sudden, a flash come over the radio that we just invaded Normandy, France, and she called the well driller in. His name was Lepo, come from Woodstock,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, listen to this, our boys just invaded France. Boy, she said, I know my son ain't there because he just went over in January. 3 weeks later, she got a telegram from the War Department that I was wounded in combat. Then she got another letter that I was recovering and I was going back to duty. Then she received another telegram that I was seriously hurt.
Were you able to keep in touch directly with your mom and the rest of your family?
Well, through letters, I
Right,
had,
letters, yeah.
I couldn't write nothing, but I had nurses from English gals.
Yep.
They used to come in and write letters all the time.
That was nice. Good. So how long did it take you to recover from that injury then?
I never did.
Okay, so you got sent back on a medical?
While I was in, you know, funny, while I was in the hospital with my arm, when they ZI'd me, which means they would send me back to the zone of interior, which is the United States.
Mm-hmm.
They had a rope in my arm for traveling reasons. And while I was sitting in the operating room, another fellow came in a wheelchair. And I looked at him, I said, hello, and he turned around, he came around front and said hello, and I looked at him, and I said, I know him, he looked at me. And finally, my doctor said, okay, Wood, you're finished, you can go back to the ward. The other doctor says, okay, you know, ain't that awful? That's what happens when you're 81. He was a guy I went to school with, did business with and everything else in Saugerties.
And you knew him?
Yeah,
Mhm. So you got sent back to the zone of interior, United States?
then matter of fact, they wanted to fly me over, and I said, I'm sorry, I don't fly. They said, 5 hours you'll be in New York. Instead of 5 hours, I was 5 days. I come home on the Queen Mary.
Ah, good. The Queen Mary had been converted to a troop ship during the war.
Yeah, there was a troop ship going over and a hospital ship coming home.
Wow. Was there any kind of entertainment or anything going on?
Oh, there's a lot of entertainment.
Yeah, yeah.
Matter of fact, in England, I'll never forget, they had the USO show,
Mm-hmm.
and this one fellow was behind curtain singing, and we thought it was Frank Sinatra,
Yeah.
and it was Sammy Davis Jr.
Ah,
He was only a young man at that time.
was that before or after you got wounded?
Oh, that was long before,
Yeah, okay.
yeah,
So you got to get back to the United States on the Queen Mary,
yeah,
and then you landed in New York, I take it,
right.
and then what happened?
Well, then from there, we went to Staten Island, the hospital there, in which they gave us half pay, or then a 12-hour pass, which I couldn't from home. We were there 4 days, and they put us on the train, and one sergeant came in, he said, "You know where you're going?" I said, "Nope, we were in the last train, so we figured we weren't going far." And then the officer came through, he said, "Well, you're heading from Memphis, Tennessee, Kennedy General Hospital." Well, I can't repeat what I told him, but I said, "Why don't you send me back to England? It's just as far." And when I got to Kennedy General Hospital, they never even touched me.
Yeah. So you spent that time down in Tennessee instead of coming 120-something miles up to
Yeah.
Saugerties to visit your family.
And
That sounds like the military way of doing it, all right?
they gave me, from Kennedy General Hospital, Memphis, Tennessee, they gave me a 30-day convalescent leave, a 40-day convalescent leave, and a 60-day convalescent leave. Now, can you imagine how much money it cost me to come home just to see my folks?
But you did.
But I did,
Yeah.
yeah.
How did your folks take it? You were wounded and so forth. How did they feel about that?
Well, my mother and dad were very, very active in the VFW. And they always went to the Veterans Hospital. And of course, they always saw these men that lost their minds. And my mother always said, you know, if, God forbid, something like that happened to me, that they wish the good Lord would take me because they saw what men went through. So they took the good because of the fact that I still had everything I had.
So you were physically injured but mentally fine.
Right.
So they were happy with that. Did you mention, did your dad serve in World War I?
My dad was a chief petty officer, a chief gunner's mate in the Navy.
So you had a military tradition in your family?
Yes, I did, yeah.
Overall, did you, when you came back here on leave, did you have any particular things that you did besides visiting home or
No,
no?
did a little fishing.
Little fishing? Okay. Now, you do have some photographs, right, John? Let's just see if we can't maybe catch one of them anyway or so on the screen here.
I don't know. Well, this is a picture of my company, Company L.
Okay. That's the company that went ashore at Normandy, huh?
Yeah, some of it.
Okay. You're way down the bottom
And
there?
of course, way down here on the bottom is that good-looking fella.
Yeah, it's zeroing in pretty good there. Looks like we're good. Oh, here we go. It's pretty good. Yeah, we got you.
And that was taken in Fort Benning, Georgia, of 1941.
1941.
Yeah.
On the whole, how did you feel about your fellow soldiers and the officers?
Well, you know, you always think about things long after. But a lot of times, you know, we called our officers not in front of them and our sergeants, but they were a wonderful bunch. They were a bunch of good training people who saw that you learn with this, Lord rest him, this Captain Gatto. He was a professional football player. And when he gave us hand-to-hand training, he threw us. He didn't mess around. He said, this is what it's going to be. And of course, we had trench knives and whatever.
You have, I understand, kept in touch with some of your fellow veterans. You do have reunions in the 4th Infantry Division, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You want to tell us a little something about that?
Well, I belong to New Jersey chapter of the 4th Infantry Division Association. And I met several men that served with me. I don't belong, but the New England chapter adopted me and my wife as members. And of course, they are a lot more active than the New York chapter, New Jersey chapter. And we visit them at least once a year. And we made some very, very special friends. I met men that I didn't know were alive. One instance, I'll never forget, this one fella that was captured when I got hit. His name is Gene Purick. He comes from Amsterdam, New York. Well, he was captured. Then I understand when he took Cherbourg, he was recaptured. Then I understand he was killed in action. And on a Wednesday afternoon, I had two daughters. One was 4 and the other was 2, up the game farm. And I was about 10, 15 feet away from my wife, and this man walked in between us. And it was Gene Purick, the man that I thought was killed in action, on a Wednesday afternoon in the Catskill Games Farm. So he was in pretty bad shape. And hopefully he's still alive, I don't know. But I am in touch with our clerk, who lives in Brooklyn, and also a close friend of mine, Joe, who lives in Pennsylvania. And then I have another close friend who was with me when we hit France. As a matter of fact, he has a letter in our book that one of our men wrote, War Heroes, War Stories, and I never wrote nothing because I don't believe in that kind of saying, oh, this guy killed that. That's a lot of baloney. But anyway, he wrote a letter in. On D+2, my assault team captured a battery of artillery. And he wrote a letter in, he said, and it said, where's the medal? What he meant was, we were supposed to get the French reward. And he stayed home. Me and John Wood were on the same boat, landed in France, and what we had accomplished, and how come we didn't get the medal. So, that's one of the highlights.
You've been active in the American Legion and the VFW.
Yeah.
What did you do after you got out of the service? What was your career? Did you go
I didn't
get
do
GI
anything.
Bill or?
No, I didn't do anything like that. I was out about 3 months, and I had to help my sister's mother-in-law out. She had a garbage route in Saugerties. Then after that, I went to work in Froxview.
Electronics company here in Saugerties.
Yeah. Then I went with GE. Oh, no. Yeah. Then I went with the A&P. And I was with them for some 30 years. Then I went to work for the county, Department of Weights and Measures. And I left there and retired.
I know not long ago you got your high school diploma from Saugerties High School. Want to tell
Oh,
us a
yeah,
little bit about that?
Yeah, they passed a law whereas any man, or any person, I should say, that left school to serve his country could get his diploma from high school, which I applied for. So on my 79th birthday, I had the honor of working with the principal and superintendent of the Saugerties High School, and I received my high school diploma.
Anything else you'd like to add? How did this affect your life, your military service, would you say?
Well, I had bad thoughts. I think, when I look back at what I had saw, it sort of reflects on me a little bit. And I'll be very honest, not to talk politics, but from the First World War right on through to the present war, we men and women went over other countries to fight to keep the war over there, to keep the terrorists over there. And I think that's the reason why we're there today. Because I'd rather see bombs bursting over there than have them bursting over here. And one thing I might add, we have a saying, that we honor our dead by helping the living. And one way that anybody and everybody can help us living veterans is fly the American flag. That's what we fought for, plus the freedom of our country. You know, I've had a lot of people shake my hand and say, thanks to people like you, we're not talking German. And that's about the story of my life.
Well, thank you very much, John. Appreciate you coming. Thank you a lot.
You're welcome. Thank you.
That was very good, John. Thank you very much. I know